Hello, and thank you for joining us today. We're going to be talking about some basic business plan elements and giving an introduction to the fundamentals or core principles, business principles really, that should be in every plan. We know that for a lot of people, business plan writing can be overwhelming, but it really doesn't have to be because there's, again, a set of basic principles that really should be in every plan. If you haven't started your plan yet, this brief presentation will help you begin to do that. And if you have started, following the elements in this presentation will help make your business plan that much stronger. So before we get started, I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. Who am I? Well, I'm Randy Lewis, founder and president of the GSL Group. We've been writing business plans for almost 20 years now. And between writing, editing, and reading plans, we've done hundreds of business plans and helped raise millions in capital for companies and individual entrepreneurs. Again, because most business plans are for investment purposes, we really know how investors think, and that's really the essence behind this whole presentation. I'm also a professor of business at Cal State Channel Islands, and I've been teaching elements of business planning and business plans for nearly 10 years now. I attended the Anderson School at UCLA. I'm also a chartered financial analyst and an accredited valuation analyst. I don't say any of these things to boast or make myself seem better than everyone else, but I think it's important that you know who's giving this presentation, and I think it helps your confidence level in knowing what experience is brought to the table here. So let's get into the meat of the presentation. What are we really talking about here? First question is, what is a good business plan? Well, as you can tell from the question itself, it's open-ended. You might have been on the internet, looking at different websites, getting different advice, and you know that there's a ton out there. But before I answer this question, I wanted to make a couple of points. The first one is that most people, unfortunately, don't even know the difference between a good plan and a bad one. Also unfortunate is the fact that there are a lot of things that can make a business plan bad, but there's only a few things that can make it good. And the good things are going to be in this presentation. So after you watch it, hopefully you find it useful and informative and clearly to the point on what makes a business plan good. The second thing is there's a difference between business planning and the business plan itself. The business plan is simply a written expression of the business planning process. So now let's answer the question. Simply put, a good plan is one that connects the dots. Let's go back to these templates. If you've seen a template, you've seen the different sections of a plan. Marketing, finance, production, management. These are what I call the dots. A good plan connects all the dots in a logical manner. That means that everything makes sense, everything is clearly explained, and it makes logical sense to the reader. If you're showing your plan to an investor and the dots aren't connected, you're going to pose big questions in the investor's mind. One thing to always remember is that the business plan is an expression of yourself, not just the business. If you don't give confidence in the investor's mind that you know what you're talking about and that you can pull this off, your chances of investment are very small. Okay, so let's start putting all this into action. What do you need to do first? Well, we always suggest that you plan your business first. What does this mean? Well, if you think back to connecting the dots that I explained earlier, this is really what we're talking about. You can make a list of bullet points, short sentences, whatever works for you, to really lay out an outline of your business. And what are you outlining? Well, again, you're connecting the dots and you're developing your value proposition. What is the value proposition? Well, think about someone sitting at the other side of the table and you're trying to sell them something. The value proposition is that the value that you're providing to that person for them to buy your product or service. You're solving a problem. They have a need, they have a want, they have a desire, and you are providing the solution to their problem. Value doesn't always have to be price. It can be quality, convenience, experience, or a long list of things, as well as price. A lot of people think of value just as price, but it depends on what you're competing on. If you think about a list of companies, each one of them is going to have their own value proposition. For instance, Walmart is competing on price. They're a volume business, and that is their value proposition. The last thing is know your market. We're going to talk a lot about what the market is in a minute, but you really need to show knowledge of the industry that you're competing in. This is the number one reason why businesses don't get funded. It's also the number one reason why a lot of businesses fail. There's an old adage about business plans that says investors only look at the financials and the management, and that's it. So that might be an exaggeration, but really what they're trying to do when they look at the management team is to show or prove to themselves that you have knowledge of your market. So what is your market? Well, your market is your suppliers. Who are you going to buy products from? When, where, and how? It's also your customers or your clients. It's also your distributors. Distribution is a huge issue, often overlooked in business plans. How is your product or service going to get to the end user, the one that's actually using the product and paying for it? And also your competition. Who's out there and what are they doing? Who are your competitors? Well, if you don't already know, you should find out as soon as possible. We always suggest that people make a list of their competitors and their competitors' value propositions. What this might do is help you identify a gap in the market. A gap is an unmet need or a need that's not being met well enough in your industry or market. The only other thing besides finding a gap is a large enough market to where there's room for many competitors. Then your value proposition doesn't have to be all that unique. If you think of restaurants, for example, the market is so large for restaurants that really the competitive differentiation in restaurants is not all that large compared to other industries. So we're going to show you some things that people do wrong in business plans. We get these a lot when we get business plans to be edited. The first one is the statement, "We have no competition." So if you're going to make a list of the top 10 red flags for investors when they're reading your business plan, this one's got to be near the top of the list. What this says really is that you don't know your market, that you haven't done the proper research, and that you don't know the competitive landscape that's out there. We had a business plan one time to be edited. It was for an online rewards program for shopping. And it had this statement in there that we're the only company doing this. So we went on Google and we did a Google search for online rewards programs. And you can guess that we got tons of hits. So it took us 3 seconds to find out all of the competition that this company had. So this just is a huge red flag that this company really hasn't done the homework necessary, and this is all going to translate into investor confidence or lack thereof. So in rare cases, there is a product so unique that you might not have any direct competition at the beginning. But remember, a business plan should go out 3 to 5 years, and even if you have no direct competition now, if you're successful, you're certainly going to have it in the future. You've all seen industries that have adapted to their competitors, changed their business models to adapt to the industry changes or consumer preferences, and you're going to have competition in the future, and you should show how you're going to adapt to that. So you really need to know who your competition is and what they are doing to be successful, or if they're not successful, what they've done wrong. Okay, so this is where we begin to integrate everything. Remember that your value proposition and what your competitors are doing are related. This is where you're going to connect the first dots. You're going to find out what your competitors are doing, you're going to identify any gaps, and then you're going to adjust your value proposition accordingly. For example, If you're going to compete on quality, explain why your product or service is better or better quality, that there is a large enough market for the presumably higher price. Remember, typically, better quality means higher price. Will people pay up for your product or service? And how you can still make a profit with these higher costs. If you give a higher quality product, presumably it's going to cost you more to make. If it's not going to cost you more to make, you're going to have a significant argument and a compelling reason why, convincing I should say, reason why your costs are not higher. Continuing along these same lines, if you're going to compete on price, you're going to explain how you can lower costs. Presumably, again, if you're going to sell it cheaper, you should be able to get it or make it cheaper versus the competition, and how you're going to reach volume sales. Because if you're going to compete on price and sell your product more cheaply than everyone else, presumably you're going to have to sell more of it to make a product. This is a key dot that needs to be connected. If you're going to compete on convenience, this has to do with mostly distribution. You're going to want to explain how you will get your product or service to the end user, either more cheaply or better than everyone else. Think about Dell. Dell was a company that really competed on distribution. They were the first company to really make a profit selling computers online. Their products were not unique. They weren't better than HP or other computers that you could buy, but how they were getting it to the customer was unique. So we hope everything has made sense so far, and we wanted to conclude with some common pitfalls to avoid when writing your business plan. The first one is what we call the "if we build it, they will come" approach. We recently had a rewrite where the original writer had written about a website, and they said that if people visit our website, naturally they will buy, or something to that effect. Well, unless you prove that, nothing can be further from the truth. And they hadn't proven that. So it's a bold statement. It's laziness, really, because you're not showing how that will happen. We're not saying it's not true. You just need to show why it's true. The second one is not connecting the dots. Now, we're just giving a brief introduction here in this presentation, which is why we're going to do more. So we haven't gone through all the dots in detail. But when a dot is not connected, again, it raises a huge flag in the minds of investors. So you want to make sure that somewhere in your plan, all the dots are connected. And they should be connected on the first page of the executive summary. The third one is overcomplicating the plan. Assuming that all the dots are connected, the only things that you really need to convey to an investor are enthusiasm and profit potential. You don't have to show that you're the smartest person in the world. You just have to show the logical progression of how you're going to provide a decent return for your investor. And we want to make a point here as well, something that is extremely common. Recently we did a rewrite for a company, and the president of the company gave us the pitch over the phone. He told us basically the business model, what they were doing, and it sounded great. He showed extremely good market knowledge. All the dots were connected. So we heard the story over the phone, we hung up, and we were even excited about the business prospects for this company. But when we read the business plan, none of that was conveyed. So your business plan is a story. It's a convincing argument. So it should give the same feeling when someone puts it down as if you were just standing in front of them giving them the story. And we can't overemphasize this enough, actually. Related to that as well is the poor elevator pitch. Most people are familiar with this expression. It's the 30 seconds to a minute that you're going to get to pitch an investor, which is awfully common. So you want to make sure that in a concise manner, which translates into really the first couple paragraphs of your executive summary, in a concise manner you want to convey all the dots and how they're connected. The fifth one, which we've already talked about, so we won't spend a ton of time on it, is poor market knowledge. So if the dots aren't connected in the market or industry and everything's not put together, you're really raising a red flag in the investor, for the investor, I should say. Remember, again, we've already said this, and we want to make this point very clear. The business plan is also an expression of yourself in addition to the business. So if the investor doesn't have confidence in you, which you're showing through poor market knowledge, that you haven't done your homework, your chances of gaining investment are slim. The last one is the software trap. We can always tell a business plan that's been written in software in a matter of seconds, and so can investors. This doesn't mean that they're all bad, but it can be dangerous. What do I mean by that? Well, first of all, software does not have a brain. It doesn't have logic. It's not going to help you connect the dots. Really, the only advantage of software is that it forces you to think of all elements of a business plan, but it's not going to logically connect those elements. So if you're just going to make a list of things, then you're really going to need to be in front of someone to give them the pitch. The business plan itself is not going to be sufficient. So we want to make sure that people know and beware, actually, and be careful when they use software to avoid these pitfalls. So we hope you found this information useful. Again, this is just the foundation, things to think about before writing your business plan, or at least while you're writing your business plan. We've left a lot of things out. This is just a foundation. And because we've left some things out, this is the first in a video presentation series. If there's any topics that you want covered, please feel free to contact us. We specialize in business plan writing, and also we do a lot of editing as well, rewrites. We'll also provide comments. So again, thank you for joining us, and we hope you found this presentation useful. Thank you.